As a coach of actors and a mentor of actors, I've heard so many variations of why people feel like they can't succeed. I'm too tall, I'm too fat, I'm too weird looking, I'm too ethnic, they don't know what to do with me, it's just endless. But when you do this process, what you're focusing on is you're reframing those 100 so-called losses into 100 so-called wins. And rather than focusing on, I didn't get it, you're focusing on, I learned, I got better at my American accent, I got better at my emotional instrument, I got better at my script analysis. And so you're seeing it as a positive. It's really glass half full thinking. And as much as people get cynical about that, it works.
Welcome to the Funny in Failure podcast, a podcast that celebrates failure and shines the light on the emotional side of comedy, with yours truly, Michael Kahan.
Today's guest has reached enlightenment. He's thoughtful, empowering, reflective, and a soulful and conscious man. Plus, he's a very empathetic human who's done a lot of work on himself and genuinely wants to see humanity rise, which is a rare and beautiful trait. I love it. One of the many things I love about this chat is how Anthony talks about mindset. It was really interesting to hear how he incorporates it in his life and his teachings. Plus, his spreadsheet of wins, which we dive into, is brilliant. Take notes for this one. Okay, let's get into it. Anthony Brandon Wong is an award-winning actor who has worked for 40 years in movies, TV, and theatre all over the world, a singer-songwriter, and one of Australia's most sought-after acting teachers and coaches. His numerous film and TV credits include the role of Ghost in The Matrix Reloaded, The Matrix Revolutions, and Enter the Matrix video game, Steven Soderbergh's Haywire, Guns, Girls, and Gambling, Hemingway and Gellhorn, Queen of Oz, Godzilla, Kong, The New Empire, Glee, NCIS, Hawaii Five-0, Flight of Phoenix, Harrow, Upright, and the 12 Season 2 as a regular Winston hang. Anthony also played the role of Danny Law in The Family Law, and his fellow cast won 3 consecutive Equity Ensemble Awards for outstanding performance by an ensemble in a comedy series. He's also taught acting around Australia and around the world, and he's taught thousands of students over his 30-year teaching and coaching career. He's also the most senior certified teacher of the Ivana Charbak technique in Australia. And Ivana personally trained Anthony for over a period of 14 years in Los Angeles and Australia. He's also worked extensively with master teacher Larry Moss, who's also the coach of Leonardo DiCaprio, Hilary Swank, Tobey Maguire, Helen Hunt, and Austin Butler. Anthony's resume is enormous. Check the rest out in the episode notes. He's also teaching a masterclass, I believe, in Byron Bay. There might be a couple of spots left. Check it out in the episode notes below. So as you can imagine, we dive deep and we cover a lot, and we chat about the Matrix, not working for periods, and motivation, handling rejection, his amazing acting classes, food, mindset, gratitude, his win spreadsheet, being who you are, plus plenty more. Before we get into this epic chat, in case you aren't aware, the videos are now available on YouTube under Michael Kahan. That's Kahan with a K, unless you're listening to it already. I'll still be posting snippets of these chats on Instagram under Funny in Failure, so check them out if you want to stay in the loop for upcoming episodes, or you want to ask a guest a question. I'd also love it if you would share the podcast or share your takeaways from the chat. It really motivates me, helps the podcast grow, and ensures I can lock in amazing guests like this one. And just as a final reminder, the podcast comes out at 3:30 Melbourne, Australian time, with the full video of the podcast to be released the following day. Okay, cool. Thank you. Let's get into it. Oh, actually, we'll start with your passion of dining. We were speaking a little bit about this.
Oh my God.
And you have an Instagram page, and I think you've done blogging as well. Tell me about your passion for this, because I love food as well. Tell me.
Speaking, it's very apt because I have a cough lolly in my mouth, so that is not fine dining, but that is only because I don't want to cough because I have a lingering cough. So that's a courtesy to you and your guests, so I don't cough all the way through the podcast. But to answer your question, yes, I grew up in a restaurant and I'm Taurian. So when you're Taurian, when you're that astrological sign, you are destined to love food. Well, most Taurians do. I don't know if Hitler did. I don't know if Shirley MacLaine did or Cher did, but I certainly am a foodie. I'm a crazy foodie. I have so many cookbooks and restaurant guides from around the world.
Oh,
And
wow.
whenever I go traveling, that is the first thing I research. So, and yes, I do have a food blog with my partner. He and I have a food blog called Universe of Taste. We are notoriously slack at posting any posts on it. We posted one about our recent ramen adventure in Kyoto the other day, but
Oh,
that's the
nice.
first one in about a year. So people who follow our wonderful blog probably are a little starved of content, no pun intended. But
That's pretty good.
it was pretty good. See
Yeah.
what I did there? And
Yeah.
but yeah, I just love it so much. And I think food, I read once that food is the DNA of a culture, and you learn so much about a culture through their food. Do
Agreed.
was that Steven Spielberg? Leave me alone. So yeah, so I love it, and I think about it. I could be eating a meal and reading a restaurant guide for the next meal. Not very
Cool.
present with the meal I'm in, but constantly thinking about food.
We're very similar. I love a good meal. A good meal elevates everything. It just transforms you. There's something within your soul. You can just feel it. And the experience of a good meal as well. It's just unbelievable.
Mm.
What made you not only feel this way, but want to present it to the world?
I think some of our happiest times are with meals, as you've just articulated, and some of my happiest times have been with meals, and not just meals, not just the actual food, but as you said, the whole experience. I mean, recently, um, oh, so sorry, that's not
No,
very
you don't need to
desirable.
apologize
Oh, I just said
whatsoever.
sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Anyway, my sister dined in the Eiffel Tower,
Oh,
and she said at the Jules Verne restaurant, the very famous restaurant there, and she said the food was extraordinary, as well as, of course, the view. And it's things like that that you always remember. My partner and I went to Dubai last year, and we went to the restaurant called Trescind Studio, which is a modern Indian restaurant. It was then ranked 13 in the world. It was like 16 courses, and every dish was a moving piece of art. It was like when I say moving, they brought it to the table and it just was like this incredible. You didn't almost want to eat it, and then when you did eat it, explosions of orgasmic feelings washed through your body, and it was so it didn't only look good, it tasted amazing. And sometimes food is intellectual food. I call it intellectual food. Like you taste it and you're like, hmm, interesting how they put sardine with that jelly.
yeah.
But you're not like it's not yum 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 yum. It's just
Yeah.
like interesting. But this was like soul food as well as being an art gallery.
I have so many questions. I love how you see it. What makes a dining experience bad for you?
When it's well, firstly, when there's not great technique or expertise in the food is overcooked or the meat is tough or it's bland or it's oversalted. So you need to have people who really know what they're doing in the kitchen. But also when it's not delivered with love. So sometimes you go to a restaurant and
Definitely.
they are like they make you feel like you should be grateful to be there, and they deign to serve you.
Yeah.
So there's no love there. I don't like stuffy service. I like service can be courteous and polite, but I love when people are human. So you might be dining at one of the world's best restaurants, a Michelin starred restaurant, and they're still human. They're not going to be hoity-toity. That's what I love. But it's also the company. It's also if you go with someone who's a fellow foodie who loves it as much as you do, and you both have, multiple orgasms together. And so I love that. And I just love when things are done with artistry and care. And I was in Kyoto recently and going into a shop there, and the way they visual merchandise the shop to be so beautiful, the thoughtfulness behind the packaging and the way they arrange the price tags and little small things like that that most people might not notice, but I do. And I'm just like, wow, you live your life artfully and mindfully, and that's what I love.
We had a guest on the podcast, Sergio Pereira. Great guy, great chat. And the way that he sees food is incredible. He's learned from the masters. and he learnt in Japan for a while. And I think they made him just to teach him the Japanese way of life because he's not Japanese. He had to get a whole jar of rice and then put it into another like cup just with with chopsticks and do it one at a time. And that took him, I think, months. Then he had to do it back again just to teach him that this is an art form. And I've been mesmerized with his philosophy and outlook on food. It's so much higher thinking than I could have ever have like conceived. But the love, as you say, is so crucial because, as you said, you can go to a great restaurant, but sometimes they're void of love. And it's like, here's your meal, and they just churn it out. It's a money making scheme. There's nothing wrong with money. But when it's something like that, it's not quite the same. But yeah, I appreciate your beautiful take on food.
And I love that. Anything infused with love becomes great. I mean, you can have you, I mean, I don't know if you've had this experience. If you go, it sounds kind of a gross thing to talk about in the morning at 11:20, but you go into a bathroom, a public bathroom, and there's a cleaner in there who takes pride in their work and they smile at you, and the bathroom is spotlessly clean because of their care. That is an example that you can take the most mundane thing in life, and if you infuse it with love, you can run a fruit and vegetable shop, which my parents used to work in the fruit and vegetable industry. And if you go into that store and you're having a bit of a crappy day, and that owner or the staff there warmly welcome you and talk you through, you know, what things are in season, and you have a real experience, and you walk out the door of that fruit and vegetable shop feeling a bit better about life and about humanity, that is a person who is living mindfully and artfully and infusing what they do with love. And that changes everything. Anything infused with care and love and care for other people just elevates it, whether it's teaching, coaching, singing, acting, a podcast, whatever. So I really do think that's the key ingredient in everything.
I agree. I think that's how you transform the planet through, you know, being mindful and infusing love. And we've got this painter, Zach, and we'll get him over even when we don't really need that much work because he is the most grateful person on the planet. He is the most lovely man. I think he's an Afghani refugee. He's just so happy to be here. And you can feel the energy of the house completely transform. And I've never met a human like this, where like every stroke he's infusing love in it. And we've told all of our family and friends, and now we just want to keep on getting him back, and, you know, changes the world. But shout out to my man, Zach.
This is a great start to the conversation because I do believe that is our core nature. At our very core, we are all love. And when we're not being that because we're stressed or we're just being human or we're feeling vulnerable or fragile or whatever, or we're feeling angry or we're feeling blaming, we're not necessarily plugged into our true self. And if you look at most of the problems in the world, I know it might sound really simplistic, but it comes down to a lack of love. Because you don't let children go hungry. If you truly care, you set up your economic system, your socioeconomic system, so it can support people if you do it from a place of love. And so lovelessness is a massive issue on our planet, but it's curable because our core nature is that. So that lovely painter you have over sounds like, to me, I haven't met him, but from what you're saying, and you saying it infuses the whole house with love, he's living very close to his core nature.
I think
very happy experience for him and for you and for everyone he comes in contact with.
Yeah, he's an elevated soul, as are you. And we're gonna, you know, we can go in so many different directions. So
we can.
You know, we've spoken about gratitude. I want to hear how you incorporate that. But I've actually got a quote of yours, and this is very similar to what we're talking about, and also very similar mission to me. I wonder if it's changed, but you said in a article many years ago that my choices as an actor are very much based on doing work that will raise the consciousness of the audience. And I'd love to know a bit about that. When I saw that, I was so excited.
Yeah, well, I think being an actor, a person who's in a public position to potentially reach quite a few people, you know, when I worked on Matrix, millions of people saw that. You have an opportunity. You don't have to take it. You know, there's no should for everybody. But for me, I want to take that opportunity to raise the consciousness of people watching the work that I do. What does that mean? That means opening their minds, opening their hearts, eliciting their compassion, helping them recognize different sides to themselves and feel things they might not want to feel, but which would be healing for them to feel. You know, I'm a gay Asian man, so I've experienced through my life homophobia and racism. And so I know how damaging that lovelessness is and that prejudice is. And I don't want other people and future generations to have to go through that. And fortunately, our world is evolving in many countries. I mean, since I was 160 now, I turned 60 the other day. Michael, I'm a senior now.
Really?
I'm
Wow.
a senior. What does that mean? I don't relate to it. I still feel 15 in my inside. But anyway,
Oh, that's great.
so in my 60 years, the world has changed so much that we now have, I think it is at 37. I've got to look up Wikipedia again. I could be incorrect. Sorry for anyone listening out there if this is incorrect. I think it's about 37 countries now have same-sex marriage, whereas when I was born, none had same-sex marriage. And even my partner and I would have been classed as criminals because there was a criminal law in New South Wales that homosexuality or homosexual sexual activity was criminal. So I've gone in my life, in my 60 years, from seeing a world where it was criminal, and it still is in, I think, 62 countries around the world. But in Australia, it was criminal to be gay. And there was definitely no same-sex marriage and definitely no protections if you were gay against homophobic abuse. And now there is. So I delight in that. But that is what artists can do. Artists can tell stories and touch people in profound ways, in ways that facts don't always change people. Like people can read a news article. For example, let's just take something controversial like the COVID vaccine. They can read the facts about how effective that is or not effective that is, and that might not change their decision, but then they might know someone or see a film where a child dies because they weren't vaccinated or they were vaccinated, whichever way you swing on that issue, and that could change you. So when you are doing a movie, you have a captive audience for 2 hours or 2.5 hours or an hour and a half, and you can make them feel profoundly into what it's like to be gay or what it's like to be a woman in a town in Africa or what it's like to be Palestinian or Jewish or what it's like to be Ukrainian or Russian. You can profoundly make people feel that experience in a non-intellectual way, and feelings are where things change. So it's really powerful what we can do as actors. I'm not saying we can necessarily, cure cancer with our work, but we might be able to bring solace to people who are going through cancer. We might be able to bring compassion to people who are caring for those who are going through cancer. So I do think it's a beautiful responsibility. It's also so much fun.
Yeah. Okay, I've got 30,000 questions. I also do this with my writing as well. I'm not a political person, but in my writing, let's just say, like, for example, I want people to feel the issue. You can, like, as you said, state things, but how I write is to raise the consciousness of the planet through love and light. So there are ways to do that where you can bring people to the door. And when you see it visually and it's not thrown at you, it's more subtle, the feeling, the characters, how you're immersed in it. I think that changes the world. As you said, it might not cure your cancer, but it goes back to your mission as well with what you're trying to do. And, as our consciousness rises, the rest of the planet changes. And, going back to what you said, it was criminal to be gay, which is crazy. You've lived in that time and now you're seeing, a big boost in the consciousness. We've got a long ways to go. But a lot of people, when they go through pain and hurt and suffering and probably 500,000 emotions, it can be, inverted commas, easy to repeat the cycle and come from anger, fear, frustration, which I'm sure these things still come up, but you've chosen to break the cycle and actually want to, help people expand. Why? It's a rare trait.
That's a really profound and great question, Michael. Thank you. Why? I just think, well, first of all, the way I'm naturally built as a human being, I love people. I love humanity. I also have days where I hate humanity when I see some terrible things that we do.
Yeah.
But and I don't know. I think sometimes when you get wounded by different social prejudices, that wound is a blessing in disguise because it can break open your compassion. So if you've been wounded by the society you live in just by being who you are, for me, what it did is it made me more compassionate to all the other groups and people in the world who are being wounded just by being who they are. And I know how much that sucks. So I want to help create a world where we don't do that to each other, where we are not unkind to each other. And so I do think, those sort of really archetypal, profound wounds can be a source of great evolution within ourselves. And sometimes we have to learn what we want through experiencing deeply what we don't want.
Exactly. That's how I learn.
Yeah, yeah. And so sometimes, and I think it's a natural way we learn. It's not the most pleasant way, and I wish we didn't have to always learn this way. But sometimes you don't really know how valuable your health is until your health goes to shit. Or you don't really know how important a person is in your life because you've taken them for granted until they leave or until they say it's over. And sometimes we don't know as a society how terribly we're behaving towards each other until we go to an extreme, until, the whole George Floyd thing was so powerful because it was it's not like that was the first time that had happened, but it just showed us, like, is that who we've become as a society? Wow, is that how we want to be? And from that, so much discussion, so much dialogue, so much impetus, so many powerful rockets towards being a better society were born. It doesn't mean we've still got to work on that, and things are really, I don't even want to start talking about the United States, but anyway, because there's just so many terrifying things happening there right now. But those things can be such grist for the meal to provoke us to be better. And so through my work, I want to help wake people up because I want to wake myself up as well. This whole thing about woke, which is now seen as an expletive, like a bad thing, like you're so woke, and it's used as something to judge people with. Woke just means awake. And would you rather be awake to what's going on or asleep? Now, I understand sometimes we want to be asleep because it's too much. It's too much to look at another news report about war or horrendous, human trafficking or whatever. But being awake means you can then use that knowledge to do something about it. And so, and as Jane Fonda said so brilliantly in a recent awards speech, she just said, woke just means you give a damn. And so if that's what woke is, I'm pretty woke then, because I do give a damn what's happening to my Indigenous brothers and sisters. I have Indigenous friends. I do give a damn what happens to them. I do give a damn what happens to women and why they're not paid the same as a man, or the domestic violence that's occurring against women and men. I do give a damn about what people in my disabled friends, people with disabilities, are going through. So does that make me bad, or am I woke? Well, yeah, I guess I am.
Heartless. I'm joking. You're a man that you heal yourself, you heal others as well. And, feeling that empathy, which I want to get into, and how you seem to master it. That's really important. But just while this springs to mind, I know you know the author, Neil someone.
Neil Donald Walsh?
Yes. I read a small book many years ago. I think it's for children, like Conversations with God or something like that.
Yeah.
And he talks, it's like a book for children, right? Or I have a small version, so I don't know if there's a bigger one. And it talks about how someone shining their, showing the darkness within is actually important because it allows your light to grow. So through someone potentially, bullying someone, you're able to step in or learn how that feels. Or if you're the one being bullied, how to look out for other people. And it's a really important to what you said, is because although we don't want them and we say goodbye, these allow us to grow. And I've grown through, the hard situations. And you spoke about a little bit about your upbringing and how that's kind of made you the man today, but not through, victimization, which is perfectly understandable. but how you've channeled that into wanting yourself to grow and others to grow. And I think that's a beautiful mission, and that goes in alignment with your acting as well. That could be quite hard to always carry, as we've said, with everything that's going on. So I appreciate that you're doing that as well.
Thank you for the acknowledgement. And I also want to say that I have my days where I'm not my best self. I have my days where someone cuts me off in the traffic, and my God, no matter how much therapy I've done and meditation I've done and positive affirmations I've done and healing work I've done, some monster comes out of me and, fuck you. Like, I'm like, who was that guy who just said fuck you to that person who cut me off in the traffic? So, like, it's an ongoing daily journey to try to come from the best part of yourself. But, we're human, and we're going to have some ordinary days. We're going to have some days where we're not at our best. And that's important to forgive ourselves for those days too, because no one can be Mr. or Ms. Perfect every, 24/7. But thank you for the acknowledgement. I'm certainly trying to, or attempting to, live my life with those values.
It's I'm exactly the same as you. I think I've done a lot of work, but sometimes, there's some days like, oh my God, why was I like that? Or I can't believe I've done that. I need to go back into it. That's the whole life journey. But while we're on this as well, because I know you've done a lot of different healing works, you've worked a lot on yourself, you've had different therapies, you applied in your training and coaching as well. But I think this will be a great segue into it. And I want to hear about all the stuff that you've done. I think when you went for a theater audition, and this is a bit loaded, so we'll work around this, but you had a theater audition and they said that was a great audition, but you're coming too much from your head. And that led you to do various things such as like scream therapy and all of this stuff. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah. I remember exactly what you're talking about. So I went to this wonderful audition technique workshop where we had to do a monologue. And the teacher was my dear friend, Dean Carey, who was the artistic director of the Actors Centre Australia for many decades. And then he brought in his friend and also someone I know as well, Gail Edwards, who's a major acclaimed director. And she watched my monologue from The Homecoming, the Harold Pinter play. And she wrote down on my feedback form, nice, clear works from the head. And when I read that on the feedback form, kind of alarm bells went off in my head, because to work from the head back then, I was thinking, God, that is great. Actors don't work from the head. They work from the guts. They work from their heart. They work from their balls, right? Works from the head. I don't want to be that kind of actor. And that led me on a journey to go, I don't want to be that kind of head actor. I want to be an actor, a heart actor. I want to be a guts actor. So that led me to study things like primal scream therapy, where you be in a room and you just be like, ah! for 2 hours and lose your voice. And then I did things like bioenergetics, which was where you would shake your body like this and all this emotion would come up and then you'd cry and express it. And so I did all this stuff. I studied all these different acting trainings, which were about getting in touch with your emotions. And so, yeah, I changed it. And I saw Gail many years later, the director who gave me that feedback. And I said, Gail, I want to thank you because you wrote that, it actually led me on this journey to explore the other parts of myself. And I do think there's a place for the intellect in acting. But I think it's a balance. And I was probably, I was a journalist back then when I was doing that workshop. I was, or was I a journalist? Hang on, that was in 1985. I became a journalist shortly after, and I was studying political science. When did I study? Yes, I had, no, actually 1985. So I had studied political science from 1983 to 86. So when I did that workshop, I was doing a lot of head stuff. I was doing sociology and I was studying literature. And so I probably was, I was more in my head. But the head's a valuable thing. And the prefrontal cortex is the part of us that can reason. And we need that. And sometimes that's the balance. Sometimes actors go so into their feelings that they don't have that objectivity, or they don't have that ability to step out of those deep, raw feelings. So we need both. But I think back then when Gail said that, I was probably needing on some level to get into my emotional life, and I did.
Oh, because it's not, as you know better than anyone, what you study, whether it's primal therapy or biomechanics, if I believe that's what you said.
Bioenergetics, yeah.
Bioenergetics, sorry. I want to hear about what that is.
Yeah.
That is not just improving your acting, that's improving your life. So doing these things,
Yeah.
you are growing as a person. And also for you to accept that invitation, you could have been, fuck her, she has no idea what she's doing. I'm a
Yeah.
great actor. All of those emotions, you probably felt a bit hurt because, as you said, you're a gut actor. And to actually
Right to
accept,
be. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And to accept that invitation to improve also, we can be very stubborn, we can be defensive. You accepted it and then you went on this whole journey. So isn't that that's pretty exciting that through a small moment has become a large moment in your life or yeah.
I love how you put that because that's exactly what it was. It did lead me on an entirely new journey. It sort of was a fork in the road, and it took me on, the road less traveled. And yeah, it was a great, great growthful opportunity. I like that. I like that idea that all of these gnarly experiences are invitations to be your best self, your deepest self, your most compassionate self, your least defensive self, your most open self. And I have to say, Michael, that there are some days I don't take the opportunity. I just go, fuck you, and how dare you, and I go into my ego and I'm offended. But yeah, I've tried to see the gift in things, not necessarily in the moment that the person says that thing, but afterwards I try to reflect and go, hey, that didn't feel good, but actually I needed to hear that.
You know what's really interesting, and I'm sure you've had many moments. These two just spring to mind. Two long stories, and I'll try and do as short as possible. Like one person, I was writing a script, and this person tried to steal my script, and that was the most stressful period in the world. And I think that's when I started to lose my head. Anyway, long story short, it was extremely stressful, and to have probably, we throw the word like narcissist out a lot, and yes, we've all got some form of narcissistic traits, but there's not that many pure narcissists. I'm sure you've met them before, and in the moment, that was the worst experience of my life, and I was very angry about it and bitter. But now, with time, I'm so grateful I had that experience because it taught me 20 things, whether it's be more in my power to stand up to realize red flags, to realize, I've got a good script or how to work or collaborate with people, all of these things. But now, a lot of people, and you came with huge empathy, so I appreciate it. A lot of people like, that sucks, like sweep it under the rug. I'm like, no. In the moment, I did not feel any of this, but now with time, I'm actually grateful for that experience. Never again. And it's really interesting to see like kind of the differences. A lot of people will be like, oh, that sucks. Like, just don't even talk about it, sweep it under the rug. But with what you're saying is that was an experience, an invitation to hopefully be better or thrive, whatever the right word is. So yeah, I appreciate that as well.
That says, first of all, I'm really sorry to hear that happen to you. And secondly, what a beautiful human you are that you can do that, because I think a lot of people are in their victim. I was once told there are three ways to deal with life. There's victim consciousness, and the mantra for that is, you did it to me, they do it to me. And we've all certainly been there. And then the next one is aggressor consciousness. And the mantra for that is, you did it to me, they did it to me, so I'm going to frickin' do it back to them. And then there's creator consciousness, which is, you may have done that to me, but if I continue to beat the drum of what you did to me, I'm doing it to myself. And I can take that experience and create with it. And that's what you did.
Yeah. Wow. I
And that's
love
where
that.
all the power lives. Yeah, I love it. When I heard that too, it was so a light bulb, and I often teach that to my students too, because it's, when you work in the industry as an actor, it can be so easy to blame the casting director, the other actor, the director, the producer, but there's no power in that. And all the power lies in how you respond. We all know this. It's a cliche, but it's so true. And cliches are often so true. That's why they're cliches. We all know it's not about what happens, it's about how you respond. And on our best days, we practice that.
So this is also why I admire not only the work that you've done, but I admire the actor, because there's the rejection. Maybe you think you get a yes, but it turns to a no, or a show ends, or scheduling, all of these things, or people lie to you. I'm sure you've had it all. And especially starting out, I'm sure maybe when you were rejected, you could have potentially have been very bitter. Have you had to have moments where you've changed or learned new techniques, or have you always known that that's not going to serve you well?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on where I was in my life to answer that question, and and what the role was, how much I wanted it. Some things hurt more than others. I do think it's important to grieve your losses. So rather than, if you always had your heart set on getting a role and you've been wanting that for 4 years and you find out it came down to the wire between you and one other person and then you didn't get it, you're not necessarily going to get over that in 24 hours. And it's okay to have a little cry or a little bitch about it or a little whinge about it in order to get through it. But I don't know. I think I'm just naturally wired to be an optimist. I don't dwell long. I usually give myself a little period of time to have the shitty feelings about it and to feel them and accept them. And then I don't deny it. I don't squash it. But then I try to get through it as soon as I can. And so I don't tend to focus on the so-called failures. I don't see them as failures anyway. I just see them as an opportunity to learn, because even if I didn't get it, maybe I learned that, oh, you didn't get it because the feedback was your American accent was a bit klutzy or clumsy or not very consistent in the audition. So you need to work on that. Or there was that moment in the second scene that you're auditioning with, which required you to really be able to go to the tears, and you kind of blocked in getting there. So go off and go to work on a class where you can really learn to access that more consistently. So I guess I see things that way. And I consistently focus on and make lists of and make spreadsheets of the wins.
Oh, okay. Tell me, that's amazing, because it's.
Oh, I'm so excited to share this with you because I share this with my students. Sorry, you were about to ask me something and I
was just going to say, because especially as an actor, on paper, a win could be you get the job, you get the money, you have fun, whatever your success is. But I don't know what everyone's ratio is, but it could be 1 in 100 if you get the role. So if you're going to see it purely as 1 and 0, you're in for a tough time. So being able to enjoy the small wins along the way will help your sanity and also your quality of life. So go.
Yeah, and as you said, the win might not be getting the job. The win might be the fact that you even had the chutzpah to show up to that audition. The role scared the bejesus out of you, and you were like, I don't know if I can go for that. I think I'm going to have rampant anxiety if I go for that. And you ended up going for it. You didn't have rampant anxiety. You had a little anxiety, and you showed up. That could be the win. The win could be that you're playing a role where you have to really stand your ground and speak to that abuser. And in your life, you haven't normally done that. You've tended to be a people pleaser. And so the win is even doing the audition for that. The win is working on a French accent when you thought you were terrible at accents. And you're like, you know what? I'm going to just go for it. And you went for it. And the casting director said, your French accent's really good. So that could be the win. The win could be that you just keep going. The win could be that you turn up to the class. The win could be that you say yes to the date. The win could be that you don't do your usual thing of biting back when someone's mean and you take the high ground. Or the win could be that you do bite back because you never bite back. The win could be that you laugh about it instead of getting freaking angry for 2 weeks about it. So, but what I do is I keep a spreadsheet of anything that has scared me, made me feel anxiety or stressed me or worried me or that I thought I couldn't do. And I divide it into columns, and the most left-hand column is the date. The second column of the spreadsheet is the thing that I'm grappling with. For example, I'm doing the family law series on SBS and I have to learn Cantonese, and I don't speak Cantonese. And Cantonese is one of the most difficult languages to learn because it has 9 different tones for any word. So if you say the tone slightly different, you could go from saying mother to horse, right? So, and then you write down the feelings that's in the third column, the feelings that's evoking. It's making me feel anxiety. And then you write down the fourth column, the strength of the emotion. The anxiety is strong, or it's moderate, or it's slight. And then you write down in the fifth column, is it fifth column or sixth column we're up to, what you did to cope with that. So having anxiety, having to learn Cantonese on the family law, don't know if I can do it, don't know if I'm going to ruin my career by doing this or if I'm going to be the laughing stock of the Chinese community who watch the show. That's what's coming up for me. How did I deal with it? I got myself a really good coach. I practiced twice as much. I did affirmations. I did meditation. I did, mindful breathing before going on set. And then you write down the outcome. And my outcome was that I and my fellow cast for 3 seasons in a row won the Equity Ensemble Award for Best Ensemble in a Comedy Series. So I went from don't know if I can do this, don't know if I'm going to ruin my career, to winning 3 awards for this. So, and then when you compile 256 examples through your life of things that you were scared of, that you come out the other end and have a triumph on, whenever you get scared in future, you can go to your spreadsheet and go, well, I felt scared on this occasion, this occasion, this occasion, that occasion, and I ended up winning an award or getting a job, or the person said yes, or I had a personal win. So it reminds you not to focus on the obstacle, but to focus on how resilient you are to get through the obstacle and win, despite or in spite of the obstacle. And I find that a really useful tool. And that's how I keep on going for things in my life, because I remember when I was scared before, but I got through it.
Okay, I don't have the intelligence to comment on all of that, because that is brilliant. That is so cool, and also that you can just whip it out, because we all have, as we've said, we all have moments of doubts, insecurities, all of these things, and then you can access it that quickly. Just look at it and see all the wins as well. You made me reflect as well, and
you can have it on your phone. You can have it on your phone. You can literally take it to a job interview, a date, asking your bank manager for a loan. You can take it to the audition. And then when you are sitting in the waiting room about to go into the audition, you think, oh God, there's no way they're going to cast me. They're going to cast Hugh Jackman. You bring out your spreadsheet and go, but I felt like that on that ABC show and I ended up getting it. And I also felt like that on that Endemol Shine show and I ended up getting it. And I also felt like that on that Paramount Plus show and I got it too. So maybe they will cast me and not Hugh Jackman, or maybe they'll cast Hugh Jackman and me and we'll get to work together.
You know what's so interesting? Because you can look at the thousands of auditions you've done and say you didn't get it. But then when you have this folder, this book, this phone, whatever, and you can see all these wins, you don't even remember all of that. You say, wow, look at this list of wins I've got. It's actually incredible.
It's reframing. It's literally taking, you could literally look at 100 auditions not got, and you could see it as, you could create a narrative that shows me that I'm not meant to do this. I'm too old for it. I didn't go to NIDA. That I've heard, so as a coach of actors and a mentor of actors, I've heard so many variations of why people feel like they can't succeed. I'm too tall. I'm too fat. I'm too weird looking. I'm too ethnic. They don't know what to do with me. It's just endless. But when you do this process, what you're focusing on is you're reframing those 100 so-called losses into 100 so-called wins. And rather than focusing on, I didn't get it, you're focusing on, I learned, I got better at my American accent, I got better at my emotional instrument, I got better at my script analysis. And so you're seeing it as a positive. It's really glass half full thinking. And as much as people get cynical about that, it works.
I agree. It's all about mindset, and you're a big advocate for it. And we'll get into it further, but I just want to know what made you actually decide to do this. It's one thing to go, oh, I can store these wins in my head, but why actually put, pen to paper?
Pain, that it wasn't helping me to just sit in anxiety or fear, and I was tired of that. I was like, I don't want to. So a therapist actually taught me that technique, and I was like, that's brilliant. Wow, thank you. And so it's just a way, because we all go through pain and we all go through some kind of suffering. It's just part of human life. But it's then, we're so powerful in our ability to be our own inner therapist and our own inner best friend and our own inner guru. We're so powerful in, that's where our power lies, in our ability to choose. To choose how to frame an experience, to choose to be the script writer of our own internal life, and to say, how am I going to script write that scene? I could script write it as this guy is a victim, or I could script write that scene or that incident in my life as this guy is a winner, or this woman's a winner. They took that experience and triumphed.
Agreed. And I think that's so important because often, as we've said, when something's happened to us and we might not reframe it for us, we can see that piece of paper in our head and go, oh, that's a bad experience. But literally through like basic meditation, as I'm sure you're aware, you can literally just see the scene, feel it, change it, and go, you know what, that feeling, or move things kind of around, or realize that led to another point. Like as an actor, I didn't phrase that very well, but as an actor, you've probably had this a lot. You know, you might not get, oh, this is a good example. You really wanted this role in, I think it was Melbourne or Sydney, a theatre role, and you really wanted it and you didn't get it, but then you later get it on New Zealand. And
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but for example, so now you can go back to, you know, that page where you felt, you know, the rejection on the hurt and go, no, that actually set me up. And what I learned there has led me to this great opportunity, which is something I want. Like it's not so linear, for example. So
And I love that because that leans into a philosophy I have: when one door closes, 100 open. And what you were just referencing then, Michael, was a story where I saw M. Butterfly, a play by David Henry Hwang, on Broadway, and B.D. Wong from Law and Order and Oz was the lead. He played that role, and it's a very complex role. It's a role of a Peking opera actress who became a communist spy, and it's based on a true story. And the actor has to convince the audience throughout the 2 hours of the play that they are a woman. They have to absolutely believe that that person on the stage is a woman, and only at the very end of the play is it revealed that it was a man all along, because that's what happened in life. What happened in life was this Peking opera actress, who was actually a man, was in a relationship with a French diplomat who believed, or said he believed on 60 Minutes, that he was in a relationship with a woman the entire time and didn't realize that it was a man. And then the interviewer in 60 Minutes said, but didn't you feel when you had sex, you would have felt a penis? And the French diplomat said, no, we were very discreet. We always did it in the dark. So anyway, this play was based on that. And when I saw this role, I thought, my God, that is an incredible tour de force role. And B.D. Wong was amazing in it. So I said to myself, when that role gets anywhere near Australia, comes to Australia, I want to do that role. And this was like 4 years before it came to Australia. And then I did audition for it, and it came down to 2 actors, and I didn't get it. But then I got a role in a play at the Malt House in Melbourne called Sex Diary of an Infidel, which was almost like that kind of role. It was also a role which required cross-dressing. It required a role. And I won the Victorian Green Room Best Actor Award for that. And it opened up all these other opportunities for me in Melbourne. And I also got other roles at the same time I would have been doing M. Butterfly if I'd gotten it. And I got to do M. Butterfly in New Zealand as well.
wow.
So that's what I mean about one door closes, 50, 100 open. That something that I really thought I wanted to get, by not getting it, I got so much more.
How cool is that and exciting?
It's so cool.
Are you able to reflect on something like that? Because I know, you know, you wanted the role and you didn't get it, so you probably thought that's it. And then you look at all the other stuff you were able to do in that time frame. That's pretty exciting.
I think the universe is more intelligent than any individual person. Like, it's like the universe is like, well, Anthony, you think that's going to be the source of all your happiness if you get that role. But I actually have an eagle-eye view. I've got the drone view of your life. You've only got the view down on the ground. I'm floating, you know, hundreds of miles above you, and I can see the entire picture. And actually, I can see these other roles that will be better for you. So I'm going to give you that instead. So if we can sort of see it that way, and that can be with a person too, like you think, you know, my soulmate is that person. It's Peter. It's Belinda. And you think all my happiness is wrapped up in that. And the universe has other ideas. And that is the plot of endless rom-coms, as we've seen. Because the universe goes, actually, Peter is a narcissistic asshole, and he's going to cheat on you in the first year of your relationship. So, and I can see that. So actually, Fabian is a better choice. So even though Fabian's not your type, you don't think at first, you're going to find out that Fabian's actually your soulmate, not Peter. And it's called I think it's called, Buckminster Fuller, a great thinker, calls it the processional effect. And it's when you go towards something, but actually your destiny lies at right angles to where you're going. So you go there, but you end up here.
You think it's one thing, but it's actually another thing.
You thought it was New York where you should live, and actually it was Tahiti. And you think, Tahiti? I don't want to go to Tahiti. And then you end up in Tahiti and you're the happiest you've ever been because you meet your soulmate there and you set up a theater company there for Tahitian actors and you revolutionize Polynesian theater and that becomes your destiny. But you thought it was to be a theater actor in New York.
I love that. The universe always has we have the view of just our eye line. And then when you can get a drone or you can see it from, some people have said like from a 50-story building and you can see the whole picture. We don't quite have that. And knowing that, life is so vast and expansive and so many things can happen and away from our human view is very empowering. However, I'm fully on board with all of this. To accept and embrace that is often the hardest, job for us to, and as we said, we've spoken about mindset and gratitude. You really cultivate a mindset. Not everyone has that. I don't always have that, and there's back and forth because we can be our own blocks as well. So why did you decide to incorporate this in acting? Because, you can be the world's greatest actor, but you might be blocking certain achievements or success or your performances, or maybe when you get in the audition room, you come from too much anxiety or whatever it is. Why did you decide to bring this in?
Well, I had a teacher called Larry Moss, and he said there are two reasons actors don't succeed. And he said one is technical problems. So those are like acting technique problems. So the actor doesn't have a well cultivated enough voice to be able to do theatre, or they don't have the emotional instrument that they can play all these different deep roles because their emotional instrument's not open yet. So they need to train that. So that's technical problems. And the other thing he said was personal problems. That is things like the actor has self-sabotage, or the actor has a problem with authority and taking direction, or the actor has, a sense of worthlessness, so they never back their choices, or they never really fully own their voice on stage. So, and I always had, even before Larry said that to us, and Larry was, a great influence. Larry's the coach of people like Leonardo DiCaprio and Hilary Swank. He's an amazing teacher and a beautiful human being. I had a sense of that. I had a sense that what makes people succeed is not just their technical excellence at anything, but their mindset. So I want to always help mentor and support actors by doing both. It's like you can take 2 steps forward in an acting class and learn really great technique, but if all along the way, while you're doing that, all through rehearsing and doing your scene, you were thinking, I'm a piece of shit and I shouldn't be here. First of all, it's not enjoyable. And secondly, you're not going to do your best work. You're not going to fly. So when you put those two together of a really powerful, empowering mindset with great technique, people can do anything. You see it with tennis players on the tennis tour. There are many tennis players who have great technical skill, great topspin forehands, great two-handed backhands, but when it comes to the crunch at match point or set point, they crumble, and it's their mindset that lets them down, not their technique. But if they can bring, as we've seen so many athletes do, where they had the technical skill, but they didn't have the mindset quite operating at its full force yet, and when they go work with a sports psychologist, and then it changes. Emily Mauresmo was somebody who was always very talented, but hadn't gotten quite across the line. And I believe, if I'm not incorrect there, that she went and worked with someone on her mindset, and then she got across the line and won, Grand Slams. And so I do believe, and the mindset directly affects the body. If you believe you're a piece of shit and you're not very good, you don't breathe as fully, you often slump in your posture. All these things give off reasons to a casting director or a producer or a director not to cast you. So they go together. So I always believe they should go together. And it's just something I'm interested in. I mean, some teachers may not be interested in that. That's not their thing, and that's fine. But for me, I am interested in the mindset stuff. So it will always be part of my coaching and my training.
I love that. And, body, mind, spirit, it all feeds each other as well. And, talking about tennis, or even like I watch footy, and you can see some of the players are the most talented people in the world. But when they get on the field, it's just something that's not quite right. Or, Novak, I know you like Novak, and what a phenomenal tennis player. I saw him, I think, maybe 2 years ago. Or was it last year? Doesn't matter. And I'm pretty sure he'd done a quad or a hamstring, and he was getting in, this is the semis or the quarterfinals. And he was
against Carlos Alcaraz?
No, not that one.
Was that at the Australian Open? Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's cooked his different muscles at different times, but he's often fought through that, hasn't he?
And this is, everyone there's a top athlete. No one knew what was going on at the time. And I remember watching him. He couldn't really run down the court. He couldn't do that much. And he ended up winning. And I just saw someone that fully believes in himself, a mindset beyond any mindset I've ever seen in my life. That man was probably coming from massive pain, and he did what it took to win that game. And I don't know how any human could achieve that. And I know that he does like mindset stuff as well. And I was just blown away. I was just watching him. I wasn't even watching the game. Like, what does this guy do? Where this other guy's 100% fit, or maybe he's a little bit injured. He's playing probably a top 10 guy, and he just creamed him. It was so great to hear. And it's so nice that you actually incorporate that as well, because I'm not saying this happens. You might work with the student and you might be able to get them through, you work on their self-worth issues, for example, and they might say, you know what, I was doing acting for potentially the wrong reasons. I wanted fame, but I've grown as a person, and that's a huge win. I wonder if you've ever had anything like that. I'm sure if someone's seeing it's.
Do you mean in my coaching and with my
Yeah.
students? Yeah, I have. I've had students. I had a student come up to me and he was doing some of the exercises I'd taught him quite consistently and diligently. And he came up to me at another workshop and he said to me, I don't have depression anymore.
Whoa.
I was like, seriously? He said, I don't have depression anymore. And then two other actresses bonded in my class, and now they're married and they've become friends. And I often joke to them, I say, you still owe me commission that I introduced you guys, or at least helped bond you guys. I've had so many of those things. And so often the mindset stuff is about that. It's not necessarily about booking a job for some actors, although it does translate very often into that. But it's also about that they're just happier, that they're less mean to themselves when they work on a piece of material. They're less hypercritical and more loving and more nurturing and more supportive, or they're more trusting of other people in a rehearsal room. They're not as on defense so if that's what it does, that's worth its weight in gold.
Is that just so rewarding to hear, whether they.
So rewarding. So rewarding. Anything that you can do to make people happy, to help people remember who they are. See, the thing about mindset is that I believe that is our natural mindset. I believe our natural mindset before, we learn to be cynical, or before we have had that heartbreak from that person who betrayed us. But even when they do that, we have a version of ourself that is consistently peaceful, loving, compassionate, empowered, unafraid. Fearless is another way to say unafraid. Expansive, abundant, grateful, all those good things. And we have that version even when the person is being an asshole to us, even when someone fires us from the job, even when we get a bad review. I've got a little Buddha here. I'm not a Buddhist, but I just want to show you this for those who are watching. I believe there's a version. I'm just using a Buddha here. It could be a wise Wonder Woman. Your image is of this version of yourself. It could be Superman. It could be a wise indigenous person. It's that part of us that's wise and has the eagle eye view of anything that's occurring in our life. So that's always there. That's there in the audition room. That's there on set. That's there when you're writing your screenplay. That's there when you're doing a podcast. That's there when you go on that date. But the human self might be freaking out, but this part of ourself never does.
Yeah.
So the mindset work I do with people is just to remind them, you don't need to recreate the wheel. You've already been born with it. You've been born with a version of yourself that is sane, that is kind, that is loving. And all you have to do is not all you have to do. It's often work, but remember, and meditation helps you remember, because meditation helps you calm your nervous system down enough to feel that calm, still center within yourself after all the monkey mind thoughts have calmed down. Positive affirmations help you remember that, because this version of yourself always thinks positively about you anyway. So it's just, there's so many. What I love about being alive today in 2025, there's just a myriad, a smorgasbord of ways to remember your true nature. And our true nature doesn't war, doesn't rape, doesn't pillage, doesn't cheat, doesn't lie, doesn't hurt other people or ourselves. And that's why what is satisfying for me, if someone comes to my class and they say they don't have depression anymore, or that they trust people now, maybe that person is going to go away in their life and influence 100 other people to be kinder, to be nicer, to be more loving. And that's how you change the world, one person at a time, but firstly with yourself.
I agree. And my goodness, I'm so excited. This is why I do the podcast. It's almost like a match when you light a candle and the candle can spread to other candles as well. So you're definitely, okay. I love people that, apply the knowledge as well. You walk the talk. It's not all talk. And you are a man that does that as well. So you've given practical advice for people. So what do you do when you wake up? You meditate, you give positive affirmation? I'm sure there's a lot of people listening and they're like, what can I do to be like you? Because it's amazing.
I try to start the day on a good note because I think you set the tone for the rest of the day with how you wake up. So I try not to jump out of bed and just get on social media if I can, although I have, but I try to meditate. Even if it's 15 minutes, I use an app called Headspace, which I subscribe to, and it just has multiple different meditations, which are very simple, usually just focusing on the breath in and out as a kind of point of focus. The other thing I might do is I might pull a spiritual book or a personal growth book or a book with positive affirmations, and I might read that first before starting my day. And that means I've already put myself in an empowered, peaceful place. And, the law of attraction simply means the law that what we think about most of the time, we tend to attract. And so if you start the day thinking peaceful, grateful, loving thoughts, you're more likely to get a better response from the rest of life. So if you've started your day that way and then you go to the shops and you're smiling because you're in a good space, you're more likely to get a nice response from the barista. You may not, but you're more likely to than if you have gotten out of bed, you rushed out of bed, you stubbed your toe, then you banged your elbow on the front door as you went out and you're already in a shitty mood, and then you go to the shop with that energy and then you address the barista with that energy, and you're probably not going to get a great response because you've already put yourself in a not a very empowered state, and then that sort of attracts more experiences that reinforce that not very empowered state. So you can literally curate your day by how you start it. And whatever makes you, for some people that's go for a run, for some people that's go walk by the beach, for some people that's have a gym workout or do a yoga stretch, or, I saw you stretching in the lead up to this interview, which I think is great. Anything that makes you feel good and that puts you in a balance. So that's what I do. And then I probably think about what do I do after that. I might feed the cats or stroke the cats. I've got 2 beautiful cats. And then as I go through my day, I kind of pat myself on the back for doing that thing, getting that thing ticked off the list. So it's like, oh, wow, I put my car in for service. Yay, tick. I got the soy milk and the groceries I need to get, tick. I had a conversation with my student about their monologue, tick. So I kind of see them as wins through the day. Not necessarily trophies, but just like, yeah, I feel satisfied. Well done on that.
Okay, I love that. And did you ever speak to the Wachowskis about this? Because I would imagine they're also very tapped in and big on mindset and stuff like that.
It's interesting because I worked with the Wachowskis when they were cisgender men, and now they are trans women. And the reason I mention that is I get a sense just from seeing, like I see interviews with Lana now, who was Larry, and Lana is just beaming she's in interviews and she goes, I love my actors. And when Lana was Larry, Larry didn't seem as happy as that. So I think they're probably more tuned in now because they're closer. They've become their authentic nature of what they always wanted to be. I don't know that for sure, but that's the sense I get. And if you
Yeah.
look at shows like Sense8's
Yes.
about joy. Sense8's about people coming together to work together as a team, to share their abilities. And there's a lot of joy in Sense8, whereas, earlier works like V for Vendetta, Matrix have a lot more of a darker view of life. So anyway, I don't know if I answered your question, but you were saying, are they tapped in? There's certainly, I remember Larry when Lana was Larry, and I remember doing a scene in the library and there were all these great tomes of philosophy and history and literature on the shelf. And then Larry, had read them all. Larry was like, "Oh, that's a great book," and I'm like, these are the great times of and so smart. They've got so much in their heads in terms of knowledge of religion and history and archetypes and mythology and brilliance. But I never really had a conversation about sort of create your reality stuff. It was much more work stuff we would get into.
Yeah.
But yeah, working with them was one of the great chapters of my life, and I'm so grateful for it. And it opened up things for me in America. And I'd always wanted to do a big science fiction blockbuster like that because I love Alien. So I was like, I want to do something like Alien, and Matrix came along, and I was like, yes, please.
That's so cool. I've always wondered because I've studied in particular the first one. I know you're in number 2 and number 3, but I've literally studied that, and I was like, how can human beings create something like that? It just blows my mind. I know they worked on it for years. I think also in between
11 years. 11
Yeah.
years. Yeah.
Well, actually, it's interesting that you bring 11 years. It didn't take you 11 years to move to LA.
Yeah. Gosh, you got a great memory. You're such a wonderful interviewer and person who takes the care to research. Thank you. Yeah, it did. I had an earlier opportunity to go to LA after I did an independent movie that had gotten some traction called Floating Life. But I remember talking to my agent, Robin Gardner, and she was like, I think you should wait because that movie, Floating Life, whilst it got some awards and things or nominations, it didn't really set Hollywood alight. Like, not a lot of people know about it. You'd be better off to go there when you've got something bigger and which has more heat on it. And that was Matrix. And so, yeah, it was around 11 years that from that time of Floating Life that I waited for something bigger. And it was the right opportunity because then I was entering LA older and more experienced. And LA was still scary, but probably less scary than if I'd gone 11 years earlier.
See, that's so interesting. And this is one of the many things that I admire about you. Often, once we've got success, we want more, we want more. No, let's just do it. But, we can come from fear, insecurities, all of those things. But you obviously decided that it wasn't the right time for you. And then you're able to reap the rewards later. That's very uncommon, especially in this industry. We want it now. And in life, we want it now. So was it a hard decision? Was there like a pull? Or you're like, no, it's just not the right time?
Yeah, part of me was like, oh, this could be great to go over with this independent movie. But I really respected Robin, my agent's wisdom. So I just accepted that, and it was great because those 11 years I was doing great stuff back in Australia and also some American work too. And now when I reflect all these years later, it was the right decision because LA for actors can be very overwhelming and daunting. You're going into the Olympic Games of acting in that city with actors from all over the world competing for roles. So, if you're going as a newbie, unless you have, I don't know, for whatever reason, you were brought up with incredible self-confidence right from the get-go and you feel unfuckwithable and unstoppable, then go. But for me, I also still found it intimidating, even in my 30s when I went. And if I'd gone at 22, I think I would have been really intimidated. So I'm glad I went when I went. And it was I was there for 10 years and I did a lot of work and it was such a great chapter. And I learned so much. I grew so much, not just as an actor, but in my music, I didn't, and in my spiritual practice. And I had a relationship there. And culinarily, I could try Puerto Rican food and Honduran food. You can't necessarily get that very freely available in Australia. So I got to open my palate and my mind and my heart and my spirit in all kinds of ways from being there for 10 years.
Brilliant. And would you go back, or is Australia home?
I won't go back until a certain person who's currently in government is no longer there because I don't feel safe to go there. I feel like all kinds of terrible anti-democratic things are happening. And so even though I'm an American citizen, I wouldn't feel safe because I just hear these stories of people being legal people going in there and being put into detention or being refused entry. So yeah, that saddens me because I have many friends over there and I love America. Like I love the best parts of America. And that's the thing that I think it's important to remember with all this going on, that the good things in America are still there. You know, this is the birthplace of rock and roll, and this is where so many of the political movements that advanced the world were advanced, like, you know, the women's movement and the gay rights movement. And you know, our great playwrights, Tennessee Williams and Wendy Wasserstein, and they come from there. So I still recognize that, but I don't have, my urge is to go more to Europe and Asia and
Ooh.
Africa. And next year I'm planning to go to Belgium and Croatia and Luxembourg, and the following year maybe the Philippines. So I always want to add countries every year to go.
Yeah. I love that you can just travel and do all that stuff and immerse yourself and learn and grow. I think that's so important. And you've made me jealous, but in a positive way. I also want to tie up a few things on the Matrix because you're in the Matrix game. And
Yeah.
I generally only play like the Marios or the Zeldas. I don't really play that much, but I actually played this
Oh,
Matrix game.
great.
I didn't even realize that it was you until I was doing the research for this. And that was crazy because I'm not a big gamer, but they actually film scenes in this game, and I don't think that would have been very common. And it's not even common now, but that was a game changer because this is
Yeah.
like a proper production.
Yeah.
How did you do it? Did they have to digitally insert you? Did they film more stuff? Tell me all.
It was so extraordinary because it was like being the lead in your own Matrix movie. You know, the game was so complicated in the sense that we had live action scenes, and that just means scenes that were not the cartoon, were actual, you know, real actors in situ. Those were directed by the Wachowskis, and then
Oh,
then we had motion. They were scripted and directed by the Wachowskis. And then we had motion capture scenes where you had all these little balls, so you look like you've got kind of sci-fi acne all over you. And you have like, I don't know how many cameras, like 52 cameras filming at the same time. So we did loads of motion capture. We also did loads of facial capture where you have the balls on your face and they just go, you know, you go into a studio and they'll say, Anthony, you're now shocked because the agent has discovered where you are and they're about to kill you. So you've got to give that reaction. They record that. Then they go, you're now really relieved because the helicopter's dropped you off on top of the building and Trinity's there to greet you. And you're now really turned on because Trinity's there and you're attracted to her. And you just had to give a catalog, a library of different reactions and different physical movements, and then they can put it together in any way they want. So those movements are still probably somewhere in some, you know, computer somewhere in the San Francisco Bay Area. And literally once they showed me while we were doing motion capture, they turned me into a cucumber or a zucchini, and it was me moving in my way I move, but I was a zucchini. And that's what they can do that's why AI is really contentious, because if you record an actor's movement, you can literally then put whatever you want on top of that movement. You can make it into a potato moving. You can make it into a superhero. So, but anyway, to get back to your point, it was, yeah, the Wachowskis would direct the live action scenes. We had a different director to do the motion capture stuff. And it was, yeah, it was 15 months. We worked on that for 15 months.
including the movie or just the game was 15?
No, actually, including the movie. So your call sheet could literally be, the morning session would be soundstage 4, Matrix Revolutions. And then at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you go to soundstage 15 and you work on Matrix Reloaded, the second movie. And then in the later afternoon into the evening, you go to soundstage 6 and you're working on the game. And so literally you as an actor, having to plot where you're up to in the plot, I had to script it. I had to be like, this is where I'm at in scene 15 of the second movie, because you would flip, you wouldn't go consecutively. And so in the morning, you could be doing a scene that is late in the third movie, and then you go back to a scene early in the second movie. in the afternoon. So if you were not tracking that, you would be like, I don't know what
Yeah,
my
that's
emotional reaction is in there. What has happened? You know, it got really confusing, but it was just such a fun time. I had to do gun training. I had to do physical training. I had to learn to think like a soldier. I was trained by a US soldier to shoot guns.
oh,
I had to do accent training. I had to lower my voice one octave, and I had to take all the ups and downs in my voice out of my voice and become really monotone because that's kind of what Ghost was, which was hard because my voice naturally goes up and down. I go, "Hi, Michael." Well, they wanted everything to be like, everything to be really on one even keel, and I felt like I was just doing the same line reading for 15 months, and I
I
had no
see it now.
emotion about anything.
You literally just transformed just doing that. That's so crazy. It's still the same face, it's still the same human being. But doing the second, I didn't realize they did back-to-back movies. That's
Yeah, we did it consecutively. Like we were literally shooting Reloaded and Revolutions in the same time frame and the game. Three projects going all at once. I don't know how the Wachowskis survived that. That's so much work for them to have to do all of that. Even shooting one movie is enough, let alone two movies and a game.
and
Crazy.
also credit to them as well. And because gaming wasn't potentially seen as prestigious as it is now. I've had plenty of voiceover actors who are thriving in the gaming space, but then not so much. And it's rare when the director of the biggest movies of almost all time are then also focusing on the game.
Yeah.
That blows my mind.
Yeah, that was the first, I believe, that it was very rare to have live action footage, like movie footage in a game that had been directed by the actual directors of the movie. Usually you have, game directors who come in and do that. So it was a privilege. And most of the main cast were in the game. Like I got to do scenes in the game with Hugo weaving and with Carrie-Anne Moss and Jada Pinkett Smith, of course. And, most of the actors who were in the movies were in the games. So that was
Yes.
brilliant.
And what's it like when you then become the lead? You're not necessarily the lead there, but then in the game you're the lead. That's pretty
You
cool.
know what happened, Michael, is I was only ever told about Matrix Reloaded and Matrix Revolutions. I didn't even know there was a game. And when we tried to ask questions, my agent tried to find out about the nature of the role because we were never given the script to even say, I never got a script to read before I said yes. I just took it on faith that because they kept saying it's a pivotal role, it's a pivotal role, but I didn't know if it was going to be 2 lines or 2,000 lines. We didn't get to read a script. So when I got to my hotel room in the San Francisco Bay Area, there was a script called Enter the Matrix on my hotel room bedside chest, and I was like, Enter the Mate. What the hell is Enter the Matrix? And then I started flipping through it, and my ghost, the character name, was on like every page. And I rang my agent and they said, I think I'm the lead in this game. And they said, you are. And so that was just, and you're shooting in 2 days' time. And I was like, what? So it was such a surprise. I didn't even know that I was signing up for that. And then I find out I'm signed up not only for the two movies, but to be the co-lead in the game. But that game was amazing to work on.
I'm so glad you had that. And then I've got last thing probably on that.
We have to do a second podcast interview.
We will. There's so much to discuss, but I was just looking back at the scenes. It's literally like a movie. And
Yeah,
did it
it
give
really
you
is.
more? Because it would have built on your character more. And I'm sure there may be scenes cut in the actual movies as well, but I'm sure that would have given you this new like angle and more depth to the character as
It
well.
does, because you know what Enter the Matrix was? It was Matrix Reloaded. It was Matrix 2B. So what that means is Enter the Matrix looks at what's happening at the same time frame as Matrix Reloaded, the second movie.
Yeah.
So if you think of it like a house, Matrix Reloaded shows you what's happening to Keanu and Carrie-Anne and Laurence in the living room of that house, but Enter the Matrix shows you what's happening in the garage of the same house at the same time that Keanu and Laurence and Carrie-Anne are doing their thing. This is what's happening to Ghost and Niobe, Jada Pinkett Smith and my character at the same time. So that's what's so brilliant about it. That's why there's cross references to a character sort of walking out of a scene in Matrix Reloaded and walking straight into a scene in Enter the Matrix because it's in the same time frame. Sometimes people think the game is in a different time frame. It's actually at the same time frame as Matrix Reloaded.
Cool. That's so exciting. And this might be a part two question, so I can cut it out. I would imagine after something like that, you'd have a lot of agents and managers being like, you're going to be the next big thing. And I believe you didn't work for 3 years, which
Yeah.
was really interesting, your insights. What helped you get through that period?
Oh God, really good question. What really helped me get through? Because yes, as you said, after I got cast in Matrix and I'd shot the Matrix movies, I wasn't expecting all of Hollywood to suddenly open up, with on bended knee. But I didn't anticipate it was going to be so difficult to book a frickin' job, because I was booking like 1 out of 4 auditions in Australia, and I went for like 50 auditions in a row and got none, and over a period of 3 years. What helped me was talking to dear friends of mine who knew me well. My friend Dean Carey, the Actors Centre. I rang him once feeling like, Dean, I'm going to come home and give up my green card. This is not happening. It's been 3 years now. I'm spending so much money to be here. Maybe I should just come home. Maybe this is not for me. Maybe I'm not destined to do this. And he just said, Anthony, you're getting so close. You've gotten callbacks for some of these big roles. You're getting so close. Just hang out a bit longer. And my friend Camille, who's the visual effects producer on Titanic, who's my flatmate in LA, also said something similar. And the thing that really was a game changer was doing a 12-week course in LA called The Artist's Way, based on the book by Julia Cameron.
Oh, great.
Yeah, and that whole course was training the students who were in the course, including myself, to just treat creativity as a process. Go back to the process, not to the pass and fail of getting a job or not getting a job, but to the process, to the love of it, to the joy of playing a character. And because I was immersed in that course for 12 weeks and I really started to change my mind about creativity and acting, I was like, it's the process, it's the process. And because I just let loose I wasn't so attached to, I got to get this job, got to get this job. Then I must have started auditioning better, because that's when I got cast by David Mamet, the great playwright, in his series, the military series, The Unit. And I was also up against Russell Wong, who had loads more IMDb credits. He'd done the Joy Luck Club. He was a legend as a legendary Asian American actor. But I got that role over him. And that was after I'd done that course, or during the time I was doing that course, when I cared less about the outcome and more about the process. So that's what helped me get through. And once I got over the line with The Unit, getting a guest role in The Unit, then it all opened up. Then my belief was now fused with what I wanted, because prior to that, I was always in a state of doubt, like, can I do this? Will I get over the line? Will I actually get a job? Is this a pipe dream? And once I'd done that and got the role, I was then like, no, it's not a pipe dream. You can do it. Here's the proof. Now you can do other ones.
That is so brilliant to hear. Oh my God, what a great place to end the podcast. But before we do, how can people, you're a teacher and a coach, and I think you've got some classes coming up. How can people keep up to date with all of that, course?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for this opportunity today, Michael. You're such a kindred spirit. It's been so great to talk.
Oh, no, thank you. This is a joy.
The opportunity. People can reach me at my email address, which is brandonhero, BRANDONHERO @yahoo.com.au. I'm also teaching a class coming up on the 23rd and 24th of August at the Actors Room in Byron Bay. It's a 2-day masterclass. There are still places left for participants and also auditors, because I have both in my class. Auditors are observers who also get to do practical acting exercises and success mindset exercises that the whole class do. So they're not just passively observing, but participants get to work more deeply on scene work or monologue work. So I've got that. I've also got a teens class at the same school, Actors Room Byron Bay. That's on the Friday, the 22nd of August in the evening. And you can just you can Google Actors Room Byron Bay for those classes. And then I have a Facebook page called Anthony Brandon Wong's Acting Troupe, which is, I didn't set up that name, a friend of mine gave it that name, but that is a teaching page of mine, and you can join that as a member, and then you'll get updates about future classes I'm doing.
Cool. And you're one of the only Australian teachers that do this technique.
The Chubbuck technique, the Ivana Chubbuck technique, which is this wonderful book here, The Power of the Actor. And I think there are four of us who have now accredited teachers who have trained with Ivana Chubbuck in LA, as well as her associate teachers, and who have gone through the teacher accreditation program. So there's myself, I'm probably been doing it the longest. And then there's my wonderful friend Lindell Green in Melbourne. There's Kim Cragis, and I believe someone else who I'm not aware of her, but there's four of us currently who are accredited teachers in this Australasian region. Yeah.
Cool. And she gave a glowing review about you as well. And, give it not only just the acting, but the mindset stuff. That's very exciting. I'm glad that you're doing that. All of that will be in the episode notes below. Thank you so much. Thank you so much,
Michael, for this opportunity. I really had a great time talking to you.
You're the most empowering and inspiring guy. So yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it. This was a joy.
Welcome. It's a joy, total joy. And you're a beautiful human to do what you're doing, and you're helping the world tremendously through, bringing all these different people to share their experiences. And as you said, to normalize so-called failure. It's so compassion eliciting what you're doing. It's really a social service to people.
I love how Anthony talks about how he consistently makes spreadsheets of the wins. Often in life, we assume a win is the big, massive thing that we set our hearts out on, whether it's that promotion, buying a house, getting married, etc. Although these things are great, they are not that common, unfortunately. But Anthony is training his brain to see that there are many wins we experience, no matter how big or small. It could be getting a call back, cleaning the house, going for a run, etc. It's a beautiful reminder to be less hard on ourselves and to acknowledge that we have accomplished much more than we often give ourselves credit for. Plus, by going back to the spreadsheet, we can see the many pages of our wins and realize we're actually doing great and on the right track. So I'll leave you with this epic quote. More often than not, the secret of success lies in the very basics, the very small wins. The small, consistent, and disciplined steps lead to big successes. Unknown. Thank you for listening to the Funny and Failure podcast, exploring the deeper side of comedy.